Hey there, my fellow designers and creatives, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another video in this tutorial series. This is going to be the first video in Play, and we're going to go ahead and create a simple button interaction. We want to create the button over here so that we can link that with the animation that you see over here, and when we press on the button, this animation starts. So Play has a beautiful functionality where you can combine Rive animations with native elements in Play. So right now I've gone ahead and just created the button. So we're going to go ahead and create a component. We're going to add multiple states and animate it. So this is my phone, which I've mirrored using the new iPhone mirroring feature. And if I press on it, you can see that I can press down and the button is interacting, right? So you can actually view this on your phone and interact with it. So without any further ado, let's get started. All right, so here I am in Play. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project. Now with the free plan, you can create only one project, so I can't create another one. However, we can create a lot of drafts, so that's possible. So I'm going to go ahead and click on drafts and say create a new draft. And now the project is going to load up. Okay. Now I'm going to go explain the interface and also explain a couple of things as and when we go along with the tutorial. But for now, let's just ignore, and it's fine if the tool feels intimidating. Essentially, it's very similar to Figma where you have properties on the right side and then layers on the left side. But there's a couple more things that we can do. But anyway, let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and import the Rive animation over here. And we're just going to go and set it up and, have a couple of things ready. And then we can go ahead and animate the button. So let's go ahead and do that. So when you are in Rive, what you basically want to do is you want to export an animation, and it sort of gets exported like a PNG image. The end result looks like a PNG image, but it's essentially not. So which means if you want a transparent background, then you need to have a transparent background. Now in our case, we just want this progress bar, which basically has all the inputs and conditions and logic. And the button is something that we're going to separately create in Play, because in Play, if I export all of this together, it just exports as one thing and I can't really tap on it or interact with it, right? So I need an actual element that I can tap on or interact on. So then we're going to go ahead and create this button separately in Play. It's going to look exactly like this. And then we can control that button and link it with the Rive animation to get the result we want. So basically, I just want to go ahead and export the artboard. So I've gone ahead and just duplicated this and removed the background. So to remove the background, you just have to right click and say delete, and I've removed it over here. It doesn't matter if it's not in the exact center, not a big deal at the moment, and make sure that this is transparent. Now, one last thing that you want to do is you want to click on the export artboard, and here in the top bar, you want to choose the export artboard and then choose the state machine for that. By default, it would have been this one. We want to choose this one because when you export the Rive file, Rive needs to know which state machine to export. It doesn't know that it can export all of this. So you just have to select this, click on export and choose state machine. Maybe in a future update, you will have the option to choose in Play, but right now you can't do that. So make sure you choose the artboard and the state machine of that artboard, all right? So then you want to go ahead and choose export. You can go ahead and save the Rive file. So I think I've gone ahead and exported it over here. So this is basically what I'm going to use. All right. So now let's go back to Play. Now Play still has a couple of bugs here and there. It's still Play beta. So essentially we're missing something like the status bar over here. As you can see here, we have the safe area, and I think we're missing a status bar over here. Even though it's checked on, you can see the status bar is missing, but that's all right. So let's go ahead and start off by dragging our Rive animation. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop the Rive animation over here, and it should be over here, right? So let's go ahead and move this over to the side. Okay. Now, just like any no-code tool, like even Framer or Webflow, everything follows a simple structure where everything sticks to the top left corner, because that's how you basically build code. And so we're going to go ahead and just drag that over here. So right now this is page, and I'm going to start renaming things over here. I'm going to call this main home screen, all right? Or I'm just going to call it main screen, right? And this is going to be our Rive animation. I'm also going to go ahead and rename the file name. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Duolingo score animation tutorial. Okay, so perfect. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to add some background over here. So in Rive, we have these two colors. I'm just going to copy these two colors. So I'm going to copy this one, come back over here. And here in the appearance, we want to add a background color. So I can click here and I can scroll up and choose this to linear. And here I can add the background color. And I'm going to choose the other stop, click on that, copy that, and come back over here, choose the other stop, set this to 100%, and then paste, right? So then we've got ourselves a nice simple gradient over here, right? Awesome. Now I'm going to go ahead and select this element, and I'm going to go to the width, and instead of saying 160, which is what it's set by default, I'm going to click down here and choose fill. Okay. And also I can increase the height. Now at this point, I'm just going to choose a random height. All right. But we can set the height based on multiple values, such as percentage of the screen size, points, or we can say fill and then it takes up the entire space. Of course, in this case, we don't want that. Let's just probably do percent, and we can, let's say, do 60%, right? Something like that. Okay. Or maybe let's do 70%. Okay. Now here, as you can see, it's taking up the entire width. All we need to do is change the content mode. We have three modes, which is contain, cover, and fill. If I set to fill, it basically fills and squishes things up, which is not what we want. Think of it like you're customizing an image, right? The other one is to choose contain, and now it neatly contains it over here, and this looks fine, all right? We could probably even make the height 80%, which is 80% of the screen size. So essentially what this means is, irrespective of which phone you are going to mirror this on, it is going to respect that 70%. So if you have like an iPhone 8, which is a very small screen, then it would be 70% of that, right? So I think maybe in this case, let's just do 70% and not 80%. And this looks pretty good. Awesome. So now we have this. All we now got to do is go ahead and create the button. Now, the reason we have this empty space is because of the status bar. I think this is a bug that's not showing up, but if you probably have another version, it should show up over here. All right. So now you can actually go ahead and create the button from scratch here in Play, but I don't really recommend doing that. It's not the best for designing. Of course, it has all the features, but it can take some time to get used to. Instead, they have a beautiful import feature from Figma. So we're going to go ahead and import that. So here I'm in Figma, and basically I'm going to take this start button. I'm going to go ahead and drag that outside, and we'll do a couple of things over here because we want to make sure that things are properly defined over here before we import them. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this to be button. Okay. And I'm going to open this up, and here we have the start. I'm just going to go ahead and call this text. This is the top layer. I'm going to go ahead and call this surface. All right. Or I'm going to probably call this top surface. And this is going to be called bottom surface. Now we added a stroke in the Rive animation. So here we added the stroke. I want to add this specifically in Play so that I can show you how to design things in Play. So for now in Figma, I'm just going to have this and not the background. All right. Now, as you can see, the way this is constructed is that it's not in an auto layout because it's going to be pretty hard to do this with an auto layout because we have multiple layers stacking on each other. Just having it like this makes much more sense. But if you expand this, we see that things are not expanding properly over here. So what we can do is we can set constraints. So here I can say left and right constraint. All right. And I can say top and bottom constraint. And for the one down here, I can probably just increase this like so. All right. So make sure that the bottom surface is taking up the entire width. And this also we can set to be left and right constraint and top and bottom constraint. All right. And now obviously the text here, we want this to be left and right constraint and top and bottom constraint as well. So now if we scale this anyway, it should properly scale. I don't know why the text is not scaling properly, but let me just check. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I think if I probably set the text here to be aligned to the middle, then it should work properly, right? So let me just reset that. Let's go ahead and set this to middle aligned. And now I think how much ever we scale it, the button should work properly, right? So that's fine. So we can expand it and then it expands properly. So even though this is not in an auto layout, we're using constraints to make this work. Okay. Now, one last thing is that Play doesn't recognize stroke. So it imports it as another layer. And because of that, what I will do is I'm going to just go ahead and remove the stroke. I don't want the stroke over here. All right. Just for the case of Play. And we can just import this as it is. So all I have to do is just press Command C. And I've pressed Command C, and I'm going to go back to Play, and I'm going to press Command V to paste. So if you haven't linked your Figma account, it's probably going to ask you to link your Figma account, and just do it once, and that's about it, right? So perfect. So import is complete, and we now have our button over here. All right. Now, the text that you see over here is actually not something that we can edit right now, but we have this option called as Make Editable. So let's just go ahead and choose Make Editable. And now this becomes the editable layer, and I can go ahead and type in whatever I need, and this looks pretty good. All right. So It's rounded, bold, the same font size, same styling, same colors, everything that we did. All right. We want to go ahead and animate this button. So we want to add multiple states. And just like you would do this in Figma, we want to do the same thing here in Play. It's quite similar to how you do it in Figma. So the first step is obviously to make this into a component. So I can click here on the top right corner to say create component. And now this, as you can see, it is a component. Now, one thing to note here is that the layers are ordered in the opposite order, which is a little weird for me at least, because the text is on top, but here the text is at the bottom of the layer. So if I move this to the top, in this case, it works because we have actually set the pin to be above and we have a Z depth over here. So I'm not going to go into the details of this, but in some cases, you may not be able to understand why this is not ordered in the same order as you see over here, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and set this to top. As you can see for now, the moment I set it to top, it goes behind, right? And that's because the Z depth here is 0. And even for the bottom surface, the Z depth here is 0. So just to fix this, we can go ahead and add a Z depth of, let's say, 5, and that brings up the top surface. So this is just to make sure that the order of layers over here matches the layer here in the preview. All right, perfect. Now I'm just going to hide the variables. We're going to add that later on. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to click on this. And what I can do is if I click here, I can choose all the various states. Right now, the default state is basically how the component looks when you create it into a component. I'm going to go and choose a new state called highlighted, selected, or disabled. Highlighted is basically when you press on something. Because this is an app, there is no such thing called as a hover state. So there is only a pressed state, right? There is no hover states in mobile apps. So highlighted state is basically the pressed state. Selected is when it's like a checkbox, it's turned on, and disabled is of course disabled state. So I'm going to choose the highlighted state over here. Now, what that basically means is now I'm in the highlighted state. But what we need to do is define how the highlighted state looks like. So I'm going to go here to the interaction tab, and you can use the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here in the interaction tab, if I zoom out, actually, you know what? Let me just close this. Let's not go to the interaction tab. If I click on the button and I click over here, which is open main editor, I come here to this view and you can see the navigation over here. From the main screen, I came to the button screen. All right. And now here I have all the various states. This is very similar to how it looks in Framer. So we want to go ahead and customize this. Now, the first thing that I actually want to do here is for the entire button over here, I want to add that extra background, which acts as the stroke. So I'm going to take the button surface and I'm going to press Command C, Command V to duplicate it. Now, when you paste it pastes it as a child because all of these are essentially like auto layout layers, right? They're called as stacks over here, which is like a group, right? So you can add elements one below the other, right? But if you don't want to do that, you can just press Command D, and then Command D is going to just create another one over here outside, right? So it doesn't go inside, it goes outside. Now I want to add a bit of color to this. So here in Figma, I'm just going to copy this color, all right? And we'll come back here to play, and I'm going to come to the background, and I'm just going to paste that color over here. So click, choose select, and then paste that color over here, right? And set this to 100% opacity. Of course, there's some weird thing going on, but that's fine, right? We just want to take the bottom surface. We can see that the height is 47 pixels. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select this and choose the button height to be 47 pixels. And now you can see that it's over here, okay? Now, the reason it's above the button surface because here we don't have a Z depth, but that's fine. So let's just go ahead and rename this first of all to stroke. And I'm going to move this on top, all right? And over here. And now you can probably see that over here. Now we want it to be a little bit wider. So I'm probably going to go to the width and add like 6 pixels. Okay, or not actually button surface. We select the stroke. And here the width is 100%, all right? I'm probably going to increase that to 103% or 104%. And then I can do the same thing for the height. So the height is in values. It doesn't matter, just increase it. So we'll probably make it 54, okay? And now we obviously want to select the stroke and move it in the center. So I can go ahead and add an X offset. So I can just click here and let's add an X offset of -3. And for Y also, we do probably -3, all right? So now we've got this. Now we just have to round it off. So I'm going to select the stroke here. I'm going to come down here to corner radius, and we're going to add the corner radius over here. So let's just add a corner radius of, 12 pixel. And I also want to choose something called as continuous corners. This is basically the corner smoothing effect. Now, if you don't really know what it is, if I turn this on, maybe I zoom in a little close, just pay attention to how the corners change over here when I choose continuous corners. So if I click on it, you can see it changed a little bit. All right. And that's basically something to do with iOS. All right. And if you want to do that in Figma, you can do that as well. So you can click here. In the corner radius, you have this option called as corner smoothing, and 60 is the default option for iOS, as you can see over here, right? So you can do that in Figma as well. Okay, I think I'm going to increase the corner radius a little bit, so around 13, and I think this should be fine. Maybe let's do a little bit more. So I'm going to click on the stroke and add a corner radius of 14. Okay, so yeah, now this looks pretty good. We can copy the stroke element. And it gets pasted here on the highlighted as well, because of course this is the master and this is the variant of the master, right? Okay, so now we need to choose the highlighted state and we need to define how this looks in the highlighted state, all right? So I'm going to come down over here and I'm going to move this down like so, because when I press, I want everything to press. So I moved it down by around 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels. That means the text is also going to move down by 4 pixels, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want the color of this to be the same as the background when it's in the pressed state. So I can click on the background. Let me scroll up over here. I can click here. Looks like I can't choose a eyedropper. So let's try over here. No. Okay, it's weird that I don't have an eyedropper. Ideally, we should have an eyedropper, but that's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and just copy this color. So this is the background color. Copy this and paste that over here. Okay. Now we want the bottom surface over here to also shrink down in size. All right. So for now, let me just make this another color so we can see what's happening. Maybe I'll just reduce the opacity instead. Okay. And I'm going to select the bottom surface. All right. And here, let's go ahead and change the height. I'm going to drop down the height. Okay. And also increase the Y offset. So click here and say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then we're going to take the top surface or the stroke actually, and we're going to reduce the height of that also by 4 pixels. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase the Y offset over here. So basically, so that 1, 2, 3, 4, or 3 in this case. Or looks like we need 4 as well. So I'm going to reduce the height a little bit even more, and then drop down the Y like so. Okay. And let's do the same thing over here. Here also, let's make sure that we have 4 pixels. So let's say if I set the Y offset to be 0, right? And now if I increase it by 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? So I guess I need to increase the height by 1 pixel. And this is basically what we have. Okay, so this is looking fine. Let's come back over here. It looks fine here as well. And now all I need to do is just change the color back to the initial color that we had. So I'm gonna copy this, click on the top surface and paste that over here. So now we have the default state and then the highlighted state, which is basically the press state. Now, what we want to do is we want to basically transition. So basically add an animation, just like how you would add a tap trigger or a click or a press or whatever it is in Figma. We want to do the same thing over here. So anytime you're adding any animations or interactions, you want to use the interaction tab, which is very much like going to the prototyping tab in Figma. And I'm going to click on the button. So make sure you select the entire button component. All right. And here you can click on the plus, and then you get a bunch of triggers. And this is essentially what is triggering this button. All right. So in this case, we have a bunch of things over here. We're just going to go ahead and choose touch. And touch is basically, pressing down with your finger, right? So we're going to click on touch, all right? And here we have 2 options. We have touch up or touch down. In this case, let's choose touch down. And you can also choose the number of touches. In this case, we can just leave it as 1. Now we need to define what happens when I press down. So I can click on the plus, and here is where I can say what happens. Now, there are so many things that we can do over here, and it might be confusing to understand which one to do. But the one that we want to choose is called as a set state, because what we're basically doing is we are changing the state of this element. So the state is actually like a active state to a disabled state to a hover state to a press state, right? So we want to choose set state, and now we need to target. So target is basically which is the element that is going to change its state. So of course, in this case, it's the button, and that's why it's written as self. So the button itself will change its state, all right? And now we want to change it to which state? So from the default state, we want to choose the highlighted state, all right? And now here we have 2 other options called as invert other instances and animate. We don't need to go into invert other instances. Here, let's just click on animate, and now we can choose the animation over here. I'm not going to touch this. It's a basic simple animation. If I want, I can probably reduce this to 0.3 to make it a little faster. We can add a delay if we need. We don't really need all of that. Okay. Awesome. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mirror my phone and show you how this looks. Okay, so here is my iPhone 13, which I'm using the new screen mirroring feature that was released with the new macOS. And I can go ahead and choose connect to macOS, all right? And now that's basically going to connect to my account over here. Now what we can quickly do is if I go to the design mode, or actually let's go to the design mode actually, go back to the main screen, and I'm going to make a copy of this button, or I can just hold Option and drag an option over here and paste it over here. And I can select the main screen and set here the alignment to be center so that this button is in the center. Now here I want to make sure that I go back and choose the default state, all right? And this is what we have. So now if I go and bring back my phone, all right, so now as you can see, I have the new screen over here. And now when I press on start, you can see it transitions to basically this state. Now, when I release my finger, I should be able to come back, right? So we just want to set the other interaction. So let's go back over here and I can click on the button itself over here, which is the default one. Now, it doesn't matter where you add the interaction, because if I go to the interaction tab, you can see the interaction that we added over here. However, if I close this and I choose the highlighted one, it still basically has the same interaction, right? So what we want to do is it doesn't matter where we add it, we can just define it on either of that. So I'm going to come over here and select this one, all right? And make sure I choose the button itself. And here, what I can do is I can add another one. So I can add multiple triggers. So in this case, if I choose touch, and this time I do touch up, all right? What we want to do is we want to set state. So from whichever state it is in, we want to set the state to the state that we want. So I'm going to come over here and just type in set state. So I can press enter. And now I want it to target the self. And when I touch up, which is basically release my finger, I want the state to change to the default state, right? So when I touch down, when I press down, it goes to the highlighted state. When I touch up, it comes to the default state. And we can do the same animation over here. And we can add something like 0.3 and we should be good to go, all right? Perfect. So now if I come back to the main screen, all right, and if I try to mirror my phone, so let's bring up my phone. And now, as you can see over here, if I press down, it goes down. And if I release my finger, I can see a nice, beautiful button animation. Looks really cool. We can actually make this a little bit even faster. So I'm going to click on the button, go over here, and instead of 3, I can probably say 0.15. We want it to be super quick, 0.15. All right, so let's go back to the main screen. Let's close this up. Let's go to the main screen. I'm going to bring back my phone again. All right. Well, okay. Let's bring back my phone again. And here it's a little faster right now. All right. There you go. As you can see, it's a little faster. Now we want to go ahead and trigger this to ensure that when I press on this, the entire animation happens over here. So I'm going to show you how to do that in the next video. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, let me know in the comment sections down below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing, awesome content. And see you guys in my next video. So then take care and bye-bye.